the religious leaders came together in the year 2016 and formed a group that is MSF, that was multi-sectoral forum, that convoked the entirety of interests of us here to be able to provide leadership in this country. And all these convocations and invocations, there remained a slim team known as the DRG, Dialogue Reference Group, that was composed of only the religious leaders to be able to digest the issues in prayer and in reflection on how to provide leadership. And they have remained to be the conscience of the people. They have remained to voice their prophetic mandate. They have remained to lead this country into the processes of healing, reconciliation, and restoring Kenya and give us a new Kenya. It is in this point then I would want just to take you through that a few points that are within this framework. After the MSF 1 and 2, last year we came up with a religious leaders convocation, February 2018, that resolved to drive the agenda of the religious leaders in this country. Secondly, they put in place the initiatives of national dialogue processes. In that way, they recognized the need for a document that would guide this process in this country in a very structured manner. And therefore, the same year, last year, on the 4th July, they launched the framework for the national dialogue. And that is the document that I want to take you through. What were the objectives then in this particular framework? Number one, it was to provide a rationale for an inclusive dialogue process. To provide a rationale for an inclusive dialogue process. Number two, to provide content for the dialogue process. Number three, to outline the key principles on structure and strategies for the dialogue process. Number four, this framework identified the actors that would be involved in the dialogue process. And that's why you are here, and we recognize your role, not only in participation, but in motion. Number five, the framework outlined and demonstrated expectations and the outcomes. I move to the next topic that will be objectives of this framework. In any process in life, you must have the objectives. And therefore, led by the religious leaders, we came out with the objectives of this framework that we will be working towards. And I will enumerate them in a number form. Number one, it was to provide a rationale for an inclusive dialogue process. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, sorry. After giving the objectives, I wish to move to the national dialogue issue, the issues that were covered within the framework. Sorry for that. So, national dialogue issues. What were the issues the religious leaders wanted to look at in this country? Issues that affect us as a nation. Number one was to bring to closure the 2017 elections and making elections credible and acceptable. You all know the scenario in the 2017 first election, and then we went for the second election. And the religious leaders, guided by the wisdom of God, they wanted to close these issues of elections. Number two, they had to make a decisive action to deal with corruption. And they promised to work on this. And you are all aware, they are on course. All religious leaders from different religious faiths, they have spoken towards corruption as a menace, as a cancer that is killing this country. Number two, they wanted to look at the constitutional and legal reforms. Our constitution has been on a debate of what is good there and what is need to be taken away. So they wanted to look at it and understand it, but also guide the nation on what reforms could be and the legal reforms in our institutions of governance. Number four, they took up the mandate to look at the security sector reforms. And this, you all are aware about terrorism, about insecurity in this country, and many other issues that affect us in terms of security. They are on course. Number five, the country was divided after election, and ever always divided in many issues. They took up the responsibility to handle the national cohesion. Of course, guided by dialogue. Number six, they committed themselves to carry the responsibility to accelerate as they engage in a dialogue with the government on what we call service delivery. Service delivery. Economically, services that are provided by different sectors of the government, so that would be delivered. The last one is on to strengthen the units of devolution, institutional performance, and governance. The last one, they committed themselves to guide this country on strengthening devolution, institutional performance, and governance. Dear brothers and sisters, how would they do this then? In that framework, we came up with what we call the national dialogue structure. So that structure that would guide the religious leaders and the entire country into dialogue. So this structure has a few pillars on how they were to move on with the dialogue. Number one, to address the 7 issues that I've talked about above, they came up with the first National Dialogue Conference, which we held here last year. Out of that, they accepted and resolved that this national dialogue should be rolled down to the counties. And therefore, those conferences that came to the counties, we call them CDC, Count Dialogue Conferences. That had to handle all of these issues that I've enumerated. And I guess you all participated from your counties. True or not? Thank you. Number 3, we planned to have a second National Dialogue Conference, what we call NDC 1 and 2 and 3, if that will be. So those national dialogue conferences, they will be held here, and the CDC will be held in order to build what we call an agreement that is of National Dialogue Consensus Agreement, NDCA, National Dialogue Consensus Agreement. Lastly, they accepted that this structure should embrace a very important tool known as Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Committee. It is a tool to assess our work as religious leaders, where we've come from, where we are, and where we are going. Some of you have listened to His Eminence John Cardinal Njue. He says, tumetoka mbali, tuko mbali, na tunaenda. And why the JMO and the EC is established, or this committee was to be established through the Act of Parliament to implement NDCA. God is good. Hebu mwangalie mwenzako, anaweza kuwa amelala. Muulize, what is your role? Thank you. Thank you. What is your role in the National Dialogue Conferences? Dear friends, the religious leaders want to justify their cause. They want to justify why they have to do this. They must have a reason. They must have a motive. Why are they doing this? It is not just only responding to their prophetic mandate, but that they have also to create the conscience in this country. And therefore, I bring reasons out why the religious leaders have to continue to meet among themselves and have to make all of these convocations and conferences as to lead the country. Number one is our institutions, governing institutions. We recognize, as much as they make efforts, they have not achieved it. Therefore, we will say there is no institution that will drive the dialogue. It is the religious leadership that drives the dialogue. Makofi kwa hawa wa viongozi. Number two, that the religious leaders recognize that since the promulgation of the Kenyan Constitution of 2010, institutions have not involved the Kenyans into understanding what the Constitution is. The religious leaders want to take the lead hand to be able to unveil the issues that have to be reformed in the Constitution. Number three, the religious leaders, as you all know, and it has been addressed here by the chair and many other speakers, is that they have no boundaries. Nothing divides them. They have no personal interests. They have the interest of the Kenyans. Therefore, they will want to involve every Kenyan in the process of resolving the crisis in this country. Hebu mwangalie huyo mwenzako. Muulize kama ako tayari. Thank you. Join the religious leaders to resolve the crisis and issues that affect this country. And let us speak with one. Thank you. The next is that they are ready from that initial point to continuity to lead this process of national dialogue. It is out of them Handshake. Handshake of unity, handshake of peace, handshake of one voice as religious leaders to resolve these issues. Thank you. And lastly, with the report of BBI, the issues that the religious leaders worked on from this conference hall here, they were handed over to the organs of the government. And you can see Chair and the front desk here smiling that those points which they digested here and handed over to the PPI team, most of those issues have been captured in the PPI report. Makofi kwa hawa wazee na akina mama. Allow me to take you to the last item of this particular framework. It is good, as members we are here, after good work that has been done, though not yet complete, to do what we call assessment, to do what we call evaluation, to do what we call monitoring. And when the religious leaders have monitored themselves through reflections, they have assessed their work, they want to share with you few of the outcomes of their national dialogue. Number one, the overall outcome of their processes has brought in place a national dialogue consensus agreement. You are all aware that brought on board the IBC commissioners. Number two, they are targeting, after the elections of 2017, that there could be proper structures and organs to be able to create clarity on electoral audit, on electoral reviews, and on reforms before 2022 elections. Number three, the NDCA, which is National Dialogue Consensus Agreement, to be deposited to the JOMEC. And the JOMEC here, it means Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Committee, for an oversight for implementation. Number four, that the third National Dialogue Conference, after the convocation, what we would call NDC2, to be held as it will be planned by the DRG, the Dialogue Reference Group that is led by the religious group.